Integrations are fine, but the problem is they quickly become big monolithic applications in the pipes, right? Because they add way too much business logic. It's all custom coded. These integration platforms are also not commerce centric. There are a lot of oddities and unique characteristics of e-commerce that are not well captured in a traditional iPaaS at all. So in e-commerce, for example, you can have a single physical product in a warehouse, but it could be sold through 3 different product lines with different marketing on each.
You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-com strategy, technology and CX focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialists James Goetsch and Paul Rogers. Get insights into e-com strategy of leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX. This episode is sponsored by Shopify, and a warm welcome back to our guest, Kelly Goetsch. Hey, Kelly, how are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. And for those of you, a lot of you listening will know Kelly from his time at Commercetools and also as co-founder of the Mac Alliance. And also Kelly's got the award for the most ever played episode on Inside Commerce. The previous one we did around Commercetools strategy and product roadmap. It's got over 1,000 combined audio and video. So we know we're going to smash this out the park with the next one. And I'll just set up the scene, and then Kelly, maybe you can do that whole the backstory behind your new the new venture at Pipe17. But our topic today, a very important one, is about what's the future of integrations for e-commerce. There is always challenges in e-com projects around integrating systems, order orchestration, like cleaning up data flows and simplifying tech stacks. I mean, the number of times I've looked behind the scenes to see insane number of messaging bots and various like middlewares being used to stick stuff together and transliterate different formats. It's often amazing how many points of failure there are. So very, very timely. And I know that you're now COO at Pipe17. So why don't we let's start on that bit, which is, do you want to give people listening what's the story behind Pipe17 and what made you decide to move across now?
Yeah, so my early days at Commercetools, we were defining headless commerce and what that meant. We were first to market with it. We coined the term MACH, M-A-C-H, and co-founded the Mac Alliance, and that was great. And then that kind of turned into composability for more of a business user audience. So I really liked that category creation element of my time at Commercetools, and I was keen to do it again. I've been at Commercetools 8.5 years, love the company, staying on as an advisor, but I really like being in the trenches and creating new categories, new products, new companies, the growing, the scaling. And I saw that in Pipe17. So just for some background, my first, after I graduated from university, I was hired into Oracle as a product manager, and I worked for this amazing guy, Mohammed Afshar. And we had a good thing for 5 years, and we built some great products and had some good times. I learned a lot from him. And after he left to be CEO of Spoken.com, he, of course, asked me if I was interested in joining him. I'm like, no, telco is a little bit far away from my core competency, from what I wanted to do. So I went to Commercetools at that time. And he went on to sell Spoken.com, did really well, then was a VC for a while. And then he saw a need in order management to do what we at Commercetools did to legacy commerce platforms. So he brought me on 1.5 years ago as an advisor, and I was able to spend time in the board meetings, really learning about the business, working with some of the senior execs, just an hour a week, something like that. But over 1.5 years, I really got to understand the opportunity. And later, at the end of last year, he asked me if I'd like to formally join. And I thought, the timing is great. Let's do it.
Excellent. And so let's position this clearly, because for a lot of people, they won't know what Pipe17 is and where it fits in that wider e-com stack. Whereas Commercetools, a lot of people know, because a lot of people know it globally as one of the leading platforms. So what exactly is Pipe17 doing? What are the problems that you as a business are trying to solve with it?
Sure. So Pipe17 is seeking to disrupt the order management space as we know it today. And if we look at existing order management, you have order management systems. at the enterprise level. And order management systems were built, some of them going back to the 60s, if you can imagine that, right? Some of the company's first products out there that are still in the market today were built in the 60s. They're mainframes. And they've been modernized over the years, but the fundamental problem they're solving is not the right problem for most organizations out there. The problem they're solving is big box, retail, physical stores, a lot of custom development, a lot of gluing things together, right? One-off integrations. And these platforms are big, they're heavy, they're monolithic. There are some newer mock-based ones, but they're still fundamentally big systems of record. They take a while to implement. And a lot of folks just don't need or don't want an order management system. And what Pipe17 has built is something fundamentally different. It's a network. And it's a network of hundreds of integrations between selling channels. And we have a lot more selling channels than we ever used to have. So we have marketplaces, for example. So Amazon is really big. Google Shopping is really big. We have social. This feels like the year that TikTok, for example, has finally arisen. We have Shein and Temu really starting to take off now. We have a lot more places where you can sell things. So Pipe17 connects to all of those and the existing brand.com, of course. And then it connects to the back office systems of record. So all the ERP systems out there, the financial systems, all of those big, heavy enterprise systems of record. It also connects to things like reporting and analytics, data warehouses, data lakes. So the Snowflake integrations, for example, are one click at this point. And then finally, it connects to warehouse management systems and it connects to 3PLs. And in an age where brands are competing against Amazon for fulfillment, customers can choose to purchase either on brand.com or they can purchase the same product on Amazon. And if brand.com takes 10 days to deliver something and Amazon takes 10 hours to deliver something, you can guess where they're going to go. So what that's resulted in is a lot of brands and retailers and others out there having to make investments in their 3PLs, their warehouses, to match the delivery times of the Amazons of the world who can get those products there much faster. So fundamentally what Pipe17 is, it's a network, not a platform that's another system of record. And then intelligence between the nodes is provided through AI. So basically we grab the order from the selling channel, whether that's a Commercetools or Amazon or TikTok, we capture the order there. And then it goes into the network, and then business users, with the help of AI, decide where the order goes from that point. And you can have all sorts of different rules around, batteries have to be shipped by land. We can do least cost routing for order fulfillment. We can optimize for speed. We have all sorts of logic around split shipments. You can call out to your third-party tax calculators. You name it, we can support that complexity. And we believe that's a fundamentally different and better approach than traditional order management systems.
What do Mattel, Victoria Beckham, Sennheiser, and Glossier all have in common? They power their businesses with Shopify. Shopify is the most innovative and scaled commerce platform on the planet. It also happens to have the best converting checkout on the planet. Shopify, powering the future of enterprise commerce. Find out more at shopify.com/enterprise.
Yeah, interesting. Let's build on that, actually, because I think this is where people always want to know, how do you see the USPs and what are the specifics where your added value that a typical OMS doesn't do? Because you emphasize automation of operations. And there are other tools out there that do some level of automation. There are tools that are purely integration platforms. There are tools that are purely OMSs. So how much of this how much do you describe yourself as like an integration platform as well as an OMS? I guess what are the different buckets where Pipe17 is responsible for it versus it hands off to another system?
So integration platforms, and that's actually where the founders of the company came out of. So they ran Oracle's iPaaS business. Integrations are fine, but the problem is they quickly become big monolithic applications in the pipes, right? Because they add in way too much business logic. It's all custom coded. these integration platforms are also not commerce centric, and there are a lot of oddities and unique characteristics of e-commerce that are not well captured in a traditional iPaaS at all. So in e-commerce, for example, you can have a single physical product in a warehouse, but it could be sold through 3 different product lines with different marketing on each. And we see that all the time. There are all sorts of these things, that are just not captured. Things like splitting an order, right? Like, what's the notion of an order, and then how do you split it? Another challenge with iPaaS generally is you're doing point to point between each node in the network. So the commerce platform has to be connected to the ERP. The commerce platform has to be connected to your analytics product. The commerce platform has to be connected to your WMS, right? And then your WMS has to be connected to your ERP, and the WMS has to be connected to your 3PL, right? And, right? You end up with the number of nodes in the network squared as the number of connections you have. What we at Pipe17 have is something different and better, which is we have a canonical data model. So we capture an order and all of its adjacent data in whatever weird proprietary format. I like to joke with the team. Sometimes it's feels like we're dealing with carrier pigeons with the data protocols. We have customers who have FTP drop boxes for their orders. Some systems only work with EDI. Some systems have nice, clean REST APIs. Some use events in an event bridge. So we take whatever order in whatever format, and we map it to our canonical data model. And this is our master, clean, open format. And once it's in that central format, we can then push it to any other node in the network. So you're not doing point to point between each node in the network every single time. Instead, what you're doing is you're grabbing the order, and we do that for you. We grab it from your selling channels. We normalize it into our standard format. And once it's in that format, we can then push it out very quickly and easily to any other node in the network. And then finally, the other benefit is with an iPaaS or a traditional order management system, the integrations are fundamentally integrations that you as the customer have to deal with yourself. And what I mean by that is if UPS changes their shipping API, which they do all the time, that is something that ultimately you have to deal with. It becomes your problem. We have a network, and UPS is a customer of ours, as are many of the 3PLs out there. If they change their shipping API, we change it centrally in one place, one time, and the entire network benefits from that change. So customers don't have to do anything. So we keep orders flowing between disparate systems.
Interesting. That makes a lot of sense. And your website references pain-free deployment in 1 week or less. And I think we all know, we've been in this industry long enough, people are cynical about when there are claims of, it's just one line of code or simple integration. So can you talk us through, how is that actually practical and achievable? That's part one. And then I think the second bit I'd love to hear about is you talked about business rules. You've got AI making intelligent decisions, but you also got business rules and logic, because every business has a different set of parameters. How does the business logic get built in as part of that onboarding process?
Sure. So we actually do deliver pain-free deployments. And what that means is we have pre-built connections through our network to all of the different nodes that you would integrate with. So there's very little work that has to happen. There might be some custom data that has to get mapped in. And we do that through configuration primarily, or little JavaScript snippets. But it's not like a platform as a service where it's a runtime that you then have to build a bunch of code. It's not that. It's a network. It's different, and it's very straightforward to do. We have a lot of customers who start with one channel. They're like, okay, I'm on Sterling, but I need to start selling on Shein, right? Like, that's a pretty common requirement at this point, or TikTok or eBay. We see a lot of eBay. How do I start doing that? So we'll come in very, very quickly and just say, hey, let's connect up to the eBay selling channel, and you can list your products there and start selling, and we'll flow the orders through. So there's just not a ton of work. And I think order management systems have just been way too complicated for the vast majority of brands. And again, if you're Best Buy, if you're Target, you probably need a full order management system. But if you're, 100, 200, 500 million GMV, and you're a brand and you're digitally native, you probably don't need one. the requirements are not that challenging. What you need to be able to do is capture the order and flow them through to the appropriate systems with minimal configuration as required. So that's one thing. Second thing is our business user tooling is meant for business users, as it should be. And business users have the ability to define a flow for how the packages get routed, for how the orders get routed. So you can define business rules with a nice UI to do that. If you want help, we have an AI assistant called Pippin, and Pippin will actually help you with the mapping. So you can describe in plain text what you'd like to do. And maybe something like, I'd like to hold my orders because TikTok Shops requires a 1 hour order hold before the orders flow through, right? Because consumers shopping through TikTok have an hour to cancel their order without any repercussions. So you can just describe it through text. If you don't know how to use the UI or don't want to use it, you can say, I want all orders coming from TikTok to be held. And it's going to produce a little snippet of JavaScript, 1 or 2 lines of code. And you just paste that in there as a rule, and it will describe it for you, label it appropriately, and then that will become a business rule that you can place wherever you'd like in the future. So it's here, it's there, it's very easy to do. And I would like to think of order operations similar to like RevOps or like DevOps. You know, it's not just a technology, it's also a practice, it's a discipline, something fundamentally different.
I'm intrigued. I love it, all the names that these AI agents are getting. Where's Pippin from? Because it could be from Final Fantasy. It's a type of app, but where's it from?
That is our SVP of development. He came up with that name. I don't know where. I probably should have asked him, to be honest, but I did not ask him. I think we all just like the name and went with it.
Yeah, that's good. And you work with quite a wide range of businesses and brands. So the next question would be, what are some of the most valuable use cases you're seeing from customers on how they're using the platform? Does it fall into 1 or 2 key areas, or are you seeing some quite creative uses?
So historically, the business was founded 4 years ago, and it was founded as largely point-to-point connectors. So it was, I have a commerce platform, and I'm going to connect that up with my NetSuite ERP, right? And it would map the orders to the canonical format, and then it would push the orders to the ERP, right? And over time, Pipe17 has been adding more and more and more of these. And now we're finally to the point where we can go out and do full OMS replacements. And that's our big focus for 25 is moving up market. We've already tripled our AACV per customer. So we're moving up market pretty dramatically. We're now well into the 6 figures for our average customer size, which is great. And we're going to replace the legacy order management systems in the same way that when I was at Commercetools, we went around and replaced all the old ATG out there. ATG had been long neglected and ripe for disruption. And we went and made a pretty solid business of going and doing all those big replacements. And we see the same thing in the order management space. We see a lot of old Sterling out there, and we see a lot of old Manhattan. We see a lot of cobbled together old solutions. And in the age of efficiency, people don't want another order management system. They don't want a project. Instead, what they want is a network that they can flow their orders through, right? It's a fundamentally different proposition. So that's one. The next is channel expansion. And we see a lot of folks out there with traditional order management systems that they would like to replace but can't. But the order management systems don't support a lot of the new selling channels out there. So in the Amazon world alone, I think there are 6 or 7 different ways that you can sell things on Amazon. We support all those approaches, right? That's a key part of our product. So if you want to start doing multi-channel fulfillment on Amazon or buy with Prime, for example, it's a lot of work, if not impossible, to do with legacy order management systems. Or maybe you want to start selling on TikTok. All right, we see a lot of interest in TikTok these days. We actually won TikTok's Integration Partner of the Year last year, which we're quite proud of. So what you see is channel expansion as being the second. The third is I've got a big, ugly old ERP, and I need to start surfacing a lot of that ERP data to the rest of my enterprise. And we can do that very easily. So if we want to connect up an ERP to the commerce platform, for example, That's a very standard integration for us. And we support all of the ERPs and all the major commerce platforms out there. So you can connect those up. So ERP expansion is third. And the fourth, and an interesting one for us, is 3PL and OEM, software OEM. So we have point of sale vendors who use us to connect into their ecosystem and they resell us. And then we actually have customers, the 3PLs themselves out there are also customers of ours, and they white label and resell our product for us. So FedEx, UPS, Ryder, a lot of those big 3PLs out there, they all use us because they have customers that they're onboarding to the 3PL. And those customers don't have the sophistication to connect into the 3PL or start selling then on third-party channels, like selling channels, like a commerce platform. So it becomes really, really hard for them to do it. And the 3PLs have realized, hey, Pipe17 has built this all out for us. So they bought our software and then resell it, sometimes under their own banner, their own label, to brands and retailers who are now starting to sell online. So one of our key ICPs is 3PLs, whose ICP is also our ICP.
Yeah, definitely. I had a question for you around, because you've obviously come from a strategic role, Commercetools. You've got a really good handle on the industry because having co-founded and been a fundamental part of the Mac Alliance and its growth, of seeing how the industry's been changing over the last few years and the different types of tech stacks and how they're evolving and how people are putting things together. I'd love to hear from you, because we did this with the CEO of Patchworks about a year ago, actually. It's really interesting what he's seeing, the demand from the merchants, but also from the technology partners. So what specific types of data or integration points, apart from the social one you've alluded to, are you seeing becoming more important and that businesses are really clamoring to have that connectivity?
Well, right now, back office systems just plain don't communicate with each other. And there's been this in enterprise IT architecture. What you end up with is these walled gardens where they each think that they own the entire universe. So the OMSs out there are these walled gardens, big platforms, and they try to own everything. Commerce platforms, I'm not going to name names, but some of them think they're the center of the universe. We see the same thing with ERPs. We see the same thing with WMSs. You have a lot of these walled gardens. So data just doesn't flow very well between these systems. And the biggest source of that, if you want to look at what the most common use case is, inventory visibility. So if you've got 5 physical units of an item sitting in a warehouse somewhere, and you're selling across 8 different selling channels, and you sell through that product in one of the selling channels, those other seven selling channels need to know that you sold out. And in many cases, those messages just don't make it there. There's a nightly batch refresh, if that synchronizes all that data between all the different channels. And we believe these should be real-time notifications. It should be pushed there in real time all the time. So there's just a complete lack of visibility between these systems, and that's what we are fixing with Pipe17.
And I know you kind of touched on this earlier about the fact you've got your canonical data. So you ingest the data. Let's take the e-com system, for example. You ingest it and that's your normalized data. And then you've got the pipes connectivity to various systems, including ERPs. How do you handle the data transformation piece that's client specific? So I know you've got standardized models like, a DHL and Amazon, but you'll have an ERP with a custom setup for a company where they might have very specific rules about tags that are needed on specific orders in order for that to drive back-end processing ERP. How does Pipe17 work in that? Because obviously you're in a low no-code environment.
That's part of our onboarding process. So we have a customer success team. And then we also are working with third-party SIs and agencies who can do that mapping for you. And I should mention, when somebody is blowing up their back office, yes, the Pipe17 is a great product for that, but there's a lot more work beyond that. There's a digital transformation aspect there. So we can handle the flow of the orders, but the intelligence behind what channels to sell on, what the ERP needs, what data it needs, there's still a substantial services work in that, because it's not just implement this network and all your problems go away. There's a transformational aspect to this. And whenever you're dealing with those back office systems of records, you need help. So we recommend an agency get involved or an SI of some sort, somebody to help coach organizations through. But product wise, it is definitively not an order management system, 3-year, $10 million implementation. Those days are beyond us. As an industry, those products just don't sell anymore.
Yeah, well, you hope they don't.
We're in the age of efficiency right now. And nobody wants to bet their career on a big LMS implementation. We're seeing software across the board become more efficient, easier to implement. We're seeing cost pressures, pretty substantially, right? It's a different era that we're in right now.
Yeah, agreed. And I think this whole, our industry, we both know, honestly loves buzzwords. And like low, no code is one of the latest, but I think it's smart because it's exactly what business teams want. And I spend a lot of time working with the business teams and how they use tools properly in anger. And the biggest frustration people have is when they feel like they don't understand how change gets made because they need an expert developer to do it. And that slows them down. When a tool that's got a decent interface with some training on how to use it can speed up implementation. So yeah, fundamentally agree with that. And it's part of this democratization of tech, isn't it? Is that we take away barriers to usage.
Yes, fundamentally. And right now, the status quo is if you're a business user and you want to make a business change, you have to ticket your IT teams and somebody's got to go into your iPaaS and make a big change and hope that they don't break something, or your OMS, for example. And those are big, giant balls of code. And if you touch one thing, you could very easily break something else.
Yeah, I do find it interesting but equally, client teams need to realize they need somebody who's got a web ops way of thinking in order to be able to use these tools properly. Because I find sometimes that people get left alone without the right level of onboarding to understand how to manage flows. And flow-based tools are brilliant, but people have to understand the logic and the principle behind them to get the maximum out of them.
And that's why order operations is named order operations, because it's also a discipline as opposed to here's yet another product.
Yeah, 100%. It is really interesting because when I started off doing replatforming projects back in old Demandware, IBM, WebSphere type days, there were large web ops teams in larger retailers who were like 50 million plus. It wouldn't be out of a reason to have like 4 or 5 people purely doing web ops on those platforms. Now with the more modern composable stacks, you don't need those web ops people. But actually, you're right. This system's an operational side, which is a bit further down the line, is adding even more value, and having expertise in that is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. And if we look across mock just generally as an ecosystem, mock transformation really started in the front ends first, right? So like the customer facing, the web front ends, right? Because the value there was the most tangible, the most quickly. And then it moved down into content management, and then it moved into search, and then it moved into the commerce platforms. And there's this relentless push to modernize that's working its way down. And I saw in my day-to-day, order management is that next big category to fundamentally get disrupted.
And where are you headed at Pipe17? Because obviously you've already got a lot of connectors and that capability of doing multiple channels. How are you already down the line of integrating with all the returns to do all the reverse logistics piece as well? All those flows already enabled?
We fully support those flows. Yes, absolutely.
So sorry.
What's really interesting about our network is the company's been around for 4 years, and now the network is finally to the point where we can scale the business and scale the company, which is why I joined. I like scaling things. But over those years, we've collected integrations with all these other vendors. So returns management, we support 9 different returns management vendors. We support everything in the network. So our goal for this year is to do full order management replacements as we move up market.
Interesting. And in terms of, are there other data integration points that are a key strategic focus in the product roadmap for you this year?
More selling channel support. And it's interesting, we see Western markets moving to be much more like China in that people are shopping where they're spending their time. And they're spending their time on social media. They're spending their time with AI products these days. So we're seeing agentic commerce really start to become a thing where AI captures the order and sends it over. We're seeing a lot more of those. And then in the B2B side specifically, we see that as a big open area for us because the manufacturers of the world explicitly do not want an order management system. Doesn't make sense. They don't want one, but they all need order management capabilities. They just don't want an order management system. And a lot of those B2Bs are coming online right now. We think there's a 10x bigger opportunity with B2B than there is with B2C. And over the next few years, we're going to see way more of these come online. And I think that's also a good opportunity for us.
Yeah, the growth in B2B, it's interesting to see it move from the first stage of B2B commerce, which was portals and selling online, to proper customer experience based and like meaningful shopping tools. So I'm not surprised that B2B would be a key area for you. I got a question around the commercials of this, because people listen and be thinking, like, okay, but how does this work? And because you've talked about the fact it's, you're scaling now, you work with businesses of all sizes, you're up to enterprise. How does the cost model work? Is it a standard SaaS run based on usage? Is it tiered based on volume of data or transactions?
It's based on the number of orders. So we just calculate a cost per order to flow. It's usually a few cents per order.
Okay, so it's there's not like a minimum, or is there a minimum level? So what size business do you think it makes sense for somebody to start looking at a Pipe17? Because I'm assuming you normally work with people above a certain threshold of activity.
We started with smaller businesses doing point-to-point connections, and that was a great business. And we actually still have hundreds of them. I mean, literally hundreds of them. And we are focusing much more on upmarket enterprise going forward. So I'd have to say, if you're north of 25 million GMV, that's probably a good place to start, because you need a little bit of complexity. And if you're below that, you might be able to use just whatever is in your respective commerce platform's ecosystem. Probably works off of a spreadsheet. But, once you start becoming a real business at any type of scale, that's where you start to have complexity. And at a certain point, let's call it 100 million GMV threshold, then you absolutely need something that you can do that is not a spreadsheet or a couple hacked together integrations. At that point, you have a real ERP that you need to integrate with. You probably have a WMS. You probably have a 3PL, right? You're starting to have enough complexity to justify an actual product here. So I'd say, sweet spot for us is 100 to a billion right now. And it's usually brands of some sort, digitally native. We see a lot of, again, B2Bs, manufacturers, especially folks who are selling things online, but don't have 1,000 stores and need order management capabilities. They've got a problem, but they don't want an order management system. And we think that's a pretty substantial chunk.
And if anyone wants to push further on specific use cases and how Pipe17 would work in anger for their business, how do they reach out?
I'm always on LinkedIn, probably a little bit too much, but I am on LinkedIn. Otherwise, pipe17.com, and we've got a demo form there that you can fill out, and we'll get somebody to give you a full demo end to end in production.
Excellent. Really appreciate you coming back on again, Kelly. Interested to hear about this, because I didn't know much about Pipe17 until I started looking at it once we got back in contact. So hope you have another really good year, and look forward to hearing the success of that.
Thanks. Good to talk to you as always.
You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast, hosted by experienced consultants James Gerd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-commerce strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.